Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Kindness Advantage. I'm your host, Cindy Rowe, and in 10 minutes or less, we're going to explore ways to bring kindness into every corner of your life. And today, we're going beyond the scoreboard. Let me tell you, folks, did you watch any of the World Cup? Because it was insane. And there's a lot of moments that are teaching us different things. So, it officially came to an end last night. There were dramatic wins, heartbreaking losses, incredible goals, questionable calls, of course, always. The fans, incredible. And probably a lot of nervous pacing, right? Yeah. So as we look back on the tournament, I don't think necessarily about who won. I think about the moments that reminded us who we are. The players comforting their opponents, fans from rival countries celebrating together, volunteers welcoming strangers from around the world, people speaking different languages, wearing different colors, and supporting different teams, yet somehow sharing the same joy. And the headlines told us who won the World Cup, right? Did you pick the winner? But some of the best stories, I think, showed us what humanity can look like. Sports naturally create opponents, right? I don't know about you, but I played sports as, a child all the way up until now. I still play sports. But opponents, they don't necessarily have to become enemies. And that distinction matters far beyond the sport of soccer. And during the World Cup, we saw athletes compete with everything they had. They challenged one another, they blocked shots, they fought for possession, and desperately, they all wanted to win. But when the whistle blew, many of those same athletes shook hands, they exchanged their jersey, they hugged one another or offered comfort after the loss. And that's a lesson I think we need right now. You can compete without being cruel. Let me repeat that. You can compete without being cruel. You can disagree without dehumanizing. And you can want to win without wanting someone else to suffer. And you can also respect another person without surrendering your own position. We often act as though the opposite of conflict is agreement, but it's not. The opposite of destructive conflict is respect. Kindness doesn't require us to abandon competition, ambition, or strong opinions. It simply asks us to remain the human being standing on the other side. Now, some of my favorite World Cup moment stories didn't happen actually during the match. They happened in the airports, the restaurants, the city streets, gas stations, and fan gatherings. And I loved reading the headlines. And maybe if you follow this podcast or me, you know what I'm talking about because you've seen these stories too, right? But there was a story of an Argentinian supporter and an Algeria supporter meeting at a gas station in Kansas City, and they exchanged jerseys. Think about that. Two strangers, different countries, different teams, one brief interaction that became a symbol of connection. And another viral moment showed a lone supporter surrounded by Ecuador fans, right? His team had won, theirs had lost, yet the Ecuador supporter still congratulated them. That moment could have been tense, but it was joyful. For a few minutes, the result mattered less than the person. And that's kindness, not pretending disappointment didn't exist, not forcing everyone to cheer for the same side, simply allowing another person to experience their joy without turning it into your resentment. Imagine bringing that mindset into your workplaces or your families or online conversations. I may not have gotten the outcome I wanted, but I can still acknowledge your humanity. We all need that. That might not fit nearly on a, or that might not fit neatly on a bumper sticker, but I think it could prevent a lot of unnecessary conflict. And, in these big events, we typically focus a lot on the athletes, as we should, right? But they're the ones on the field. But with this, the World Cup, right, also depended on approximately 70,000 volunteers across Canada, Mexico, and the US. People greeting fans, helping visitors find their way, supporting the teams, managing logistics, answering questions, solving problems most of us never knew even existed. They're not the ones scoring the goals, but they were shaping the experience. And I love that FIFA described volunteers as the heartbeat of the tournament. Because really, isn't that how kindness often works? The most visible person gets the attention, but the person quietly behind the scenes helping out may be the one holding everything together. The coworker who checks the details, your neighbor who brings in someone's garbage, the volunteer who stays late, the family member who makes sure everyone else is okay. Kindness rarely demands the spotlight, but it changes the atmosphere. And after Spain, defeated Argentina last night, Spain's players formed a guard of honor as the Argentina team came forward to receive its runners-up medals. I got goosebumps just now. Think about the emotional contrast in that moment. Spain had reached its highest point. They were the champs. Argentina was experiencing the pain of falling just short. And yet, in the middle of all the celebration and in the disappointment, there was room for respect. That may be one of the most important lessons of this entire tournament. How you treat people when you have the advantage says a great deal about your character. It's easy to be gracious when you do something or when you need something. It's harder when you're the winner. Real kindness doesn't gloat. It doesn't humiliate. It doesn't use someone else's disappointment to make victory feel even bigger and better. It understands that success and humility can occupy the same space. And, it's cool how it all connects us, right? Sports have that unusual power. People who might never speak to one another suddenly have something to talk about. A goal happens and strangers in the stands hug, right? A missed shot happens and the entire room groans together. There's no need for introductions, no lengthy debate about whether they have enough in common, just a shared moment. Psychologists sometimes describe this as collective effervescence, the energy and connection people feel when they participate in something together. Music concerts create this, community celebrations create this, and sports, as we've seen, create it. And for a few weeks, the world wore different jerseys but shared the same joy. And maybe that's why these tournaments matter beyond the entertainment factor. They remind us that connection is possible. So how do we carry some of that World Cup humanity into our everyday life? Well, I've got it for you. Number one, compete without losing compassion. You can pursue the promotion, defend your idea, or advocate for your position without treating the other person as the enemy. I want you to ask yourself this: how can I be passionate without becoming personal? Number two, celebrate across differences. You don't have to share someone's background, experience, or opinion to celebrate something good happening in their life. You don't. A sincere congratulations builds more connection than we actually realize. And number 3, notice the people behind the scenes. Thank a volunteer, recognize the assistant, acknowledge the person doing the quiet work. The people who receive the least attention are often contributing more than we know. And I like this. Found this quote. Nelson Mandela once said, "Sport has the power to unite people in a way that little else does." The World Cup gave us evidence of that. But we don't need a stadium filled with thousands of people to practice this lesson. We can create it in smaller spaces. In a meeting, a neighborhood, a classroom, a dinner table, even a comment section on social media, although that one may require some extra training and possibly protective equipment, if you know what I'm saying. But the opportunity is the same. See the person before the position. Choose respect before the reaction. Remember, our differences don't erase our shared humanity. So, wrapping this all up, the jerseys, they're going to be put away. The stadiums, they're going to be empty. The confetti is probably cleaned up by now. My goodness, right? And everyone's going to return to their ordinary life. But I hope we carry something with us. The images of rivals embracing, right? The sound of strangers cheering together, the volunteers welcoming the world, the reminder that we can be passionate without being hateful, competitive without being cruel, and different without being divided. The World Cup was about soccer, but in its best moments, it truly was about people. So this week, practice one World Cup lesson in your own life. Maybe that you congratulate someone you normally view as a competitor, or thank someone working behind the scenes, or start a conversation with someone whose story is a bit different than yours, or choose respect during a disagreement. And I want you to share this episode with someone who believes we could use more humanity in the way we live, work, and compete. And if you haven't yet already, please subscribe to this channel, to the podcast, wherever you're listening or watching it on, because I provide practical ways to bring kindness into everyday life. I want you to remember that we may wear different jerseys or cheer for different teams, and we can see the world differently. But kindness reminds us that we're still on the same human team. And I'll end it like I do always. Together, we create waves of change through kindness. Thank you so much for tuning in.